What does stopping and reversing have to do with boats? How did the ship dodge it if it's fine? If I had that boat, how many fish could I catch in a day? If you want to fight in the sea, you won't be able to fight in the river. Everyone talked about this topic. The ship did not belong to them, but they were still proud that the Tang dynasty had a cruiser. Where's little tiger? Where's my Xiaohu? A middle-aged man hurriedly ran to the shore. Just now, someone had run to him to inform him. He told him that Xiaohu encountered an undercurrent in the middle of the river when he was fishing for prawn cages and was almost hit by the Tang dynasty's cruiser. When he heard this, he ran away, scared. She was afraid that something would happen to her son, and she was also worried that he would collide with the cruiser. What if the cruiser was damaged? They're back. Baldi and Xiaoji are here. They're all experts in their respective boats. Lu Laosan, you didn't see it just now. Our cruiser flew over the water, made a half circle to avoid Xiaohu, and then flew away. The boat is beautiful. I don't know how much tung oil was used, but the paint is beautiful. I saw people preparing to jump down from the side of the boat. They were probably afraid that they couldn't avoid it, and wanted to save people. Lu Laosan, the local third son of the Lu family, listened to others talk. His gaze fell on his son, and he let out a long breath. He knew all the people who were controlling the boat. They were the two leaders of the boat industry. They dared to go on any undercurrent, and they could control any boat, big or small. When the boat docked, Lu Laosan took a few steps forward, raised his arm, and slapped. Lu Laosan, what are you doing? Xiaohu is holding something from the Li family Zhuangzi. You dare to hit him? Baldi took a step forward. Lu Laosan's hand fell on his son's head, and he patted it. Don't go to the middle of the river casually in the future. You're not wearing a life jacket. Father. The young man's eyes were already closed, and he turned to look at his father. Everyone come to my house for a drink tonight. Treat it as helping my Xiaohu get over the shock. Baldi and Xiaoji, you two have to drink more. Lu Laosan patted his son's shoulder and invited everyone to eat. The group of people agreed and didn't refuse. They were curious when they saw that there was something that could be sent to Xiaohu. They went over to take a look, but they didn't want it. Moreover, the more the merrier, the more the child wouldn't be afraid and would help guard the soul. I was scared to death just now. On the yacht, the little girl sat on the deck of the third floor and looked at the river. Our boat is amazing. The winged knights wanted to jump down to save people, but the boat avoided them. Li Guizhong was cutting meat. He was also scared just now. At this time, he found something to do to recover his mental state. The meat was sliced thinly and then shredded. He marinated it with starch and cooking wine, then slid it to stir-fry other dishes. They sell oranges. Do you want to buy them? The little girl looked at the tablet screen. There were images transmitted by the drone. We're almost at Master's place and, oh, buy them. Senior sister loves oranges the most. Li Guizhong wanted to refuse, but when he looked up and saw senior sister's expression, he understood. Buy them. Thus, a fully charged drone flew out with a basket. The yacht system operated it, and the little girl spoke. How much are the oranges? Don't be in a daze. Give me a basket. How much? The drone flew to the cart selling seasonal fruits and spoke to the dumbfounded person. Many people looked at the drone together. They naturally saw the boat and knew that it was a cruiser of the Tang dynasty. The fruit seller came back to his senses and said with difficulty, "No, it's free. I'll give it to you. Fill it first. Don't fill it too full. I'm afraid it'll fall," the little girl said. The seller quickly picked up the oranges and put them into the small basket. There were about 50 of them. The small basket was filled flat, and the drone flew back with it. Another drone flew out and threw down a cloth bag. There were small stones tied to the bottom of the bag, afraid that they would be blown away by the drone's wind. 20 coins. Keep it well, the drone said. Too much, too much. Sigh. I don't even need 6 coins. Fly back 2 more times, and I'll fill 2 more baskets for you. Choose the best ones. The fruit seller shouted at the drone. The drone had already returned, and the yacht was 10 miles away. Senior sister, it's too expensive. Li Guizhong recalled the price. You'll see master in half an hour. Hurry up and take a shower and change your clothes. The little girl did not respond to the question of the price at all. After saying that, she ran to pack up. I haven't finished cutting the meat yet. Take a shower and change clothes for half an hour? I'll continue cutting. There are 5 minutes left. Li Guizhong muttered and continued cutting the meat. The yacht gradually approached the destination. A group of people at the destination were eating buns. Li Yi mobilized more people to participate in the breakfast preparation. He did not want to tire himself out. There were more and more people. People from other places came one after another. The buns that Wan Zhaoyuan was eating were filled with fish, wild vegetables, and eggs. Chapter 2037. Zhao Qinlu's pressure was increasing. He was worried that he wouldn't be able to take care of too many people. How would he know who was trustworthy and who wasn't? Fortunately, the people were self-aware and suspicious of each other. They didn't allow others to get too close. Li Lang, today's buns are delicious. How have you eaten them in Zhuangzi before? Princess Yongmu and Xiaolan were brought down in the morning. They took small bites of the buns and found that the texture was different. Normal buns are steamed or fried raw. Today's buns are filled with pork first and fried. It tastes like fried mincemeat. Li Yi gave the answer. Of course it was delicious. He fried the stuffing first. It's very expensive. Princess Yongmu expressed that she understood. Steamed raw meat was still meat. After adding water, it looked fresh, and there was a lot of meat. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The fat was fried into oil, and a lot of lean meat had to be added. We can always eat like this in Zhuangzi. Xiaolan found that it tasted good. Too many pigs were sent here, and they were sent after killing them. I have no choice but to fry them. Li Yi expressed his helplessness. Since they couldn't finish the food, he had to make a good meal for the people. Xiaolan ate 2 more buns. The local development has been going on for some time. Now that the people have taken out a lot of things, how are we going to survive the winter? The people didn't take anything, the local rich families did. The better the local development, the richer they are. The rich families are the best at using resources. Li Yi knew what the local rich families were thinking. He wanted to implement the policy before he left. It would be best if the imperial court passed it. After he left, the imperial court might not arrange it. The people's thoughts were not on the rich families. They were eating the buns happily. They were too delicious. They couldn't eat enough for every meal. The people who helped to fry the minced meat knew that they couldn't eat the buns. It was more delicious with more oil. How could 5 caddies of minced meat be half a caddy after frying? Who would eat meat like that? Buzz, buzz, buzz. Countless drones rose into the air and flew in a certain direction. Li Yi looked up and frowned. My drone was taken over by someone else. It flew to recharge with the remaining power, right? You should have told me in advance. The yacht? Princess Yongmu looked at the sky. It's faster than expected. It's about 3 hours earlier. Don't bump into other people's boats on the way and make me worry all day. Li Yi had already guessed why the yacht had arrived so early, to ensure that his system had taken over. The yacht was moving forward at high speed. Just like the lyrics of a song, there were a million possibilities at that moment. However, what were a million possibilities? The system was probably too lazy to even move against a quantum computer. Crushing was not enough to describe the power of the system. Master, it's me Qing Dai. I'm here to deliver some oranges to you. I'm about to reach the dock. I'm less than a mile away from the pier. Li Yi raised his hand to take the small basket. I know. The little girl replied. Come up and eat some buns, Li Yi called out. Yes, the drone was flying over. The eldest disciple naturally knew the distance. All right. Junior Marshal brother was disobedient and insisted on shredding the meat. Now it's slipping open. What should we do? The little girl's voice rang out again. No, I'm. All right. Get off the boat. Li Guizhong was just about to explain when the little girl interrupted him. Master, Li Guizhong's voice was filled with grievance. Bring the meat over. I'll fry up a big omelette and shred it into shreds. Then, I'll add the shredded meat and bean sprouts as a salad. Li wanted to laugh. It was not easy for the second disciple to be bullied by his senior martial sister all the time. In less than 5 minutes, a group of people arrived. 40 winged knights and 4 Li family Zhuangzi's villagers. Zhao Qinlu exclaimed. He was finally relieved. Dongzhu, The winged knights were dressed in black battle gear. They looked very handsome. Let's eat first. Today's buns are delicious. Let's fry the minced meat first. Li stood up and nodded. Master, master, there was a child on the way here. He's older than me by 2 or 3 years. 3 or 4 years old. 4 or 5 years old. Anyway, he's just like that. The little girl pulled her junior martial brother over and told him about the special situation that they had encountered. Ah, should my yacht be repaired? At least it should be fully maintained? Li was relieved that the child was fine. However, he was worried about the propeller bearings of the yacht. Go forward, stop, reverse. What about racing? How much was the wear and tear on a racing car? Would it take more of its lifespan to repair it, or to replace it with a new yacht? If it was about the same, it would be better to replace it with a new one. Of course, he would rather the yacht be damaged than hurt the child. Master, Li Guizong wanted to say something. Hurry up and eat. Don't you see that master is eating? If you have something to say, you can talk after eating. The little girl interrupted her junior martial brother again. Oh, Li Guizong pouted. Guizong, come to master's wife. I know what you want to say. Your senior martial sister is just teasing you. Princess Yongmu waved her hand. She regarded herself as master's wife. I know. Thank you, master's wife. Li Guizong smiled. Master's wife, I missed you. The little girl rushed over. After hugging Princess Yongmu, she hugged Xiaolan. The winged knights and the villagers ate the buns with their hands. After eating, they needed to get busy. Especially the villagers. They needed to take over the tasks immediately. When the winged knights ate the buns, they stood in a messy position. Their eyes darted around. From the outside, one could see that there were no gaps. The 40 people had sealed off all possible angles of attack. The yamen runners were stunned for a moment, before they hurriedly followed suit. The little girl finally calmed down. She and her junior martial brother sat on the left and right of Wan Zhaoyuan. They ate the buns and drank the fish soup. After eating a bun, the little girl said, "The skin on your leg is wrinkled. The swelling is starting to go down, right?" Wan Zhaoyuan just finished eating. Li didn't allow him to eat too much. Why didn't I see it? Wan Zhaoyuan looked at his leg. It still felt the same. The space between the sweat pores is different. Compared to the other leg, the skin color is dull. Other than the swelling caused by blood circulation, the swelling also decreased after dehydration. Li Guizong followed suit. He studied hard and was smart. He knew how to analyze. My bones are still broken. I'm afraid that they'll be dislocated when they're healed. Wan Zhaoyuan expressed his concern. It had been too long. They won't look like this when they're healed. Don't worry. I'll just break them again. The little girl comforted him. Wan Zhaoyuan. For a moment, he didn't know whether he should feel lucky or unlucky. Little girl, you're talking so casually. It's not your leg, right? It hurts now. At night, your master, Li Dongzhu, will give you that kind of medicine. Wan Zhaoyuan looked at Li Yi with hidden bitterness. The pain can still be reduced without medicine. I'll give you needles. It's a targeted treatment plan, isn't it, master? The little girl wanted to use acupuncture treatment, but she suddenly realized why her master didn't let her use it. A special analgesic will be used before sleeping. Human behavior is unconscious. Under normal circumstances, analgesics are already used, so the effect won't be so obvious. You're already used to pain. Before surgery, if you use acupuncture to relieve the pain, you'll be relaxed. Otherwise, why do you need to use plaster, traction, and steel plates? Take the initiative to limit your active and passive behavior to avoid aggravating the injury. Li Yi explained. It wasn't that they couldn't use it. There were several methods. Was pain relief more important or future recovery more important? Chapter 2038. After breakfast, Li Yi thought that Wan Zhaoyuan had used treatment as an excuse to run to the yacht. He hadn't rested well for the past 2 days, as he was afraid that someone would ambush him. When he stood on the deck of the yacht, he was completely relieved. The farmer brought 5 winged knights and a group of bailiffs up the mountain to move things. There were automatic monitoring devices and heavy machine guns. The heavy machine guns were prepared for Princess Yongmu and Xiaolan. Li Yi was worried that bad people would ambush him while he was away. Princess Yongmu and Xiaolan's marksmanship wasn't very accurate, but it didn't need to be. The heavy machine guns could be adjusted as they fired. Commander Zheng, what weapon is this? It's quite heavy. One of the bailiffs spoke to the leader, Zheng Yain. He and 2 other people carried it. 3 people was more stable than 4 people. Zheng Yain glanced at the heavy machine gun. It's a bit like a crossbow, but it shoots slightly further. It's not as heavy as a crossbow, but can it kill enemies from 200 steps away? The bailiff continued to ask. This is even further. Zheng Yain hesitated before answering. Oh, I'm afraid that dozens of people won't be able to charge up the mountain. The bailiff understood and said to his 2 companions. Zheng Yain pouted. How many bailiffs are there in the prefecture? We'll die even if we charge up together. The 2 heavy machine guns were mounted on 3 sides of the mountain. There was only one path up the mountain, and they were walking on this path. There was no cover, only a big slope. There were no cliffs around, otherwise, Dongzhu would definitely choose to attack there. In such a terrain, not to mention bad people, even 1,000 winged knights would have to use their brothers' corpses as cover if they didn't have guns. In any case, they wouldn't be able to attack in a short period of time. They would collapse tomorrow. The farmer accompanied a few people to carry other things. There were brackets and adjustable rods. Dongzhu was afraid that something would happen to Princess Yongmu, so he helped to calibrate the distance and angle of the brackets. The display at the side provides the situation at all times. It's very clear whether they hit anyone or not. If it were him guarding the mountain, he wouldn't be afraid either. How many lives would it take to charge up the mountain? When they reached a flat area at the foot of the mountain, Zheng Yain directly picked up a heavy machine gun without a base. With this gun, I can save a lot of effort. Zheng Kuan was very happy. Even without shooting, she felt that she had become stronger just by touching it. The bailiffs were speechless. How could one person carry this thing? How much meat do you eat in a day? Carry it. Zheng Kuan returned the heavy machine gun to the bailiff. She was too tired. When they arrived at the yacht, Wan Xiaoyuan placed the weapons on it. Together with the equipment that Li Yi had exchanged for, Wan Xiaoyuan finally entered a proper ward. Princess Yongmu took Xiaolan to the swimming pool on the yacht. The little girl and her junior brother began to give free medical treatment to the commoners. Li Guizong took a look at them first, and then transferred them to his senior sister. The commoners lined up to bathe in the bathrooms of the yacht and wash their clothes. After they finished bathing, their clothes were all dry. Silk clothes were the easiest to wash as they dried quickly. Linen clothes had rollers to hold them down. First, soak them in soap and water, and then pass them between the rollers. The dirty water would be pressed away. If the dirty water was directly discharged into the Yangtze River, there was no need to worry about pollution. However, it was not easy for the hair to dry. After drying it with a hairdryer for a while, someone first used a towel to wipe the hair and draped it over the body, shaking it from time to time. The drone flew around, observing everyone. The system automatically compared the posture. Li Yi sat in front of the monitor and fiddled with the mouse, numbering Wan Jiayuan's broken bones. Some small broken bones needed to be taken out and could not be pieced together. In this case, it needed to grow naturally to fill in the gaps of the broken bones. When the leg was in a swollen state, the analyzed data gave a three-dimensional picture of the leg. It included the position of the tendons, muscles, ligaments, and blood vessels. The appearance after the swelling subsided was now clear. Special medicine needs to be used, or it will take 2 years. Li frowned and muttered. According to the normal treatment with medicine, it would take too long to apply and remove the steel plate. Li Dongzhu, 2 years is fine. Wan Jiaoyuan agreed after hearing it. You can do it, but I can't. 6 months. Use special fixed auxiliary equipment and medicine. Li Yi decided that in order to exchange for good things, he needed to advertise to Wan Jiaoyuan. He would set an example and vigorously report it. He would add some words such as, "There is never a peaceful life, but there is someone who carries the burden for you." Or, "There is never a hero who falls from the sky in the world, only ordinary people who step forward bravely." The political goal was greater than the treatment goal. The people needed this. Oh, Wan Jiaoyuan chose to listen to others. 6 months was fine, that was great. His wife looked around anxiously, looking uneasy. Sister-in-law, what are you? Li looked and asked. The house is dirty, how do I clean it? Where are the cloth and broom? Wang Zhaoyuan's wife sat there and did not dare to move, afraid of dirtying things. Sister-in-law, don't worry. The winged knights will take care of it. There are special tools, it is easy to clean. Li did not want to ask her to learn again. It was troublesome. Chapter 2041. After the call with Zhao Chenlu ended, Bai Gu, who was in Luoyang's Li family Zhuangzi, had a smile on his face. Several local provinces can develop with the open-pit coal mining in Bing province. Not only in Yu province, but also in the neighboring provinces. Bai Gu looked into the distance. The sky seemed to be shining with a golden light. He knew that there were many mountains in that area. The more mountains there were, the more mines there were. Coal was needed to smelt all kinds of ores. In the past, the iron and coal mines downstream were transported elsewhere. The cost of smelting ironware, with a large amount of wood in Yu province, was higher than the price they paid for the ironware in He province. A large number of officials in He province had been dealt with previously. They were basically wiped out. The local people did not enjoy much mineral benefits back then. The officials were too greedy. In addition to the local forces, the imperial court made a lot of money and confiscated property. Now that the people there were rich, their income had increased by at least several times. Even if they were pushing carts or carrying poles to sell wontons. The imperial court had benefited greatly from this. Now that there was another place, Bai Gu felt that there would be more money next year. We should ask Li Yi to go out more and take a look at the various provinces. Song Jing found a business opportunity. Wherever Li Yi went, he would definitely help the local people to develop. If possible, we should send Li Yi to be a provincial governor. A provincial governor would be enough for 2 or 3 months. Sui echoed. If Dr. Li goes to the Protectorate of the North, the governor's mansion, and the Jidushi, it will probably attract more foreigners to join the Tang dynasty. Your abilities are only stronger than my brother Yi. When you go to the place, you will definitely be able to comfort the people and make them prosper. Li Longji looked at Song Jing and Su Yi. Are the two of you going? One will be a provincial governor again, and the other will be a Jidushi? The imperial court can't do without Dr. Li. Su'er quickly tried to smooth things over. He had never left the center of power. To put it bluntly, he had no experience in holding a position. Song Jing had been a county magistrate, governor, provincial governor, and governor of Guangzhou. Bai Gu had been a county magistrate, a registrar, a senior official, a provincial governor, an inspector, a governor of Guangzhou, and a magistrate of Hunan. Zhang Jiuling had been the Lingnan envoy, the city shipping envoy, and the governor of Guangzhou. Su Yi was afraid. He was afraid that he would be sent outside, because he didn't know how to work. Of course, he could be compared to Li Yi. He had more experience than Li Yi. Li Yi was a Dongzhu of Zhuangzi. Later on, like a sycophant, he obtained the civil and military positions. No matter how turbid the water was, they could keep their eyes open. Usually they would smear oil on their eyeballs first. This way they would be able to see things blurry, but they could withstand the stolen goods in the water. Then he would raise a dog, a black dog. If Black Dog barked when he returned home, he would have to walk around the area where the corpse was picked up. There were also corpses standing in the water, neither going up nor down. There were also corpses that could move. They stood in the water as if they were walking. Later on, the more it spread, the more mysterious it became, because the people who spread it did not consider the laws of the time. Why did he raise a black dog? This was because Black Dog was camouflaged at night. The dog barks when the smell of blood, or the congealed blood sticks to it. At this time, the person who scooped up the corpses wiped his body and clothes. He went out to see the situation, and where was the best place to dispose of the corpses. Now that the authorities are here, they'll have to provide assistance. Do you think you'll be fine just by retrieving the corpse? I even said that you were the one who killed him, but you pretended to bail him out. The corpses standing in the water were obviously stoned. Some of the stones were light, and were in the position of the whirlpool. so the corpses looked like they could walk. If you can't fish them out, report it to the authorities. When the authorities come, you accompany them down to sea. If it's true, you'll be rewarded. This was just like Li Yi's locksmiths. They had to report to the authorities and follow the procedures strictly. When the person scooped up the corpses normally, they were also responsible for solving the cases of people who died unnaturally. When it came to Li Yi, the people who wrote the books only wrote scares, not the real situation. There was a person who scooped up the corpses for dinner. He brought along a black dog and sat next to the fire instead of hiding in a corner. Li Yi brought a glass of wine closer. "You're a good swimmer, old man. This dog is good too. Go down and help." As Li Yi spoke, he threw a piece of lamb leg bone to the black dog. There was meat on it, it was raw. The black dog looked at the bone, then turned to look at its master. "Eat, Li Dongzhu is one of us." The person scooped up the bone and spoke to the dog. The dog happily took the bone and put it in front of itself, biting it with its paw. Seeing the dog eating happily, the person scooped up some wine. "It's good to be a little swimmer. I don't know how old I was, but I'm not afraid in the water. Some people say that swimming requires a lot of movement. I don't understand, but I can float whenever I want to. At first I was fishing with my father. Then one day, the children in the village died. They said to fish in the river nearby. So the person scooped up the corpses and told his story. Chapter 2045. Speaking up for the dead? My Li Lang is indeed domineering. Princess Yomu smiled like a flower. When I'm free, I'll see if there are any unsolvable cases in Luoyang. I'll do some practical work. Li puffed out his chest and muttered to himself. At least leave some evidence behind. Where can I find evidence when the person has been gone for so many years? The corpse fisherman packed a pile of dumplings and left the boat. He hurriedly brought Black Dog home to discuss the relocation of his family. The people were still lively. There were many of them, and they participated in a large rescue operation. Many people fell into the water one after another, but none of them died. The owner of the cargo ship was counting the money. Li Yi compensated him with the exchange coupons on behalf of Zhougang. He had finished shipping the goods for others. There were soybean oil, flour, dried rice noodles, jerky, salted duck eggs, cloth, hatchet, hoe, and so on. He took the boat once and brought along the items of the merchants. He wanted to repair the ship, compensate others, and compensate for lost time. He paid them all and doubled them. This was equivalent to an extra half a year's income. Including the crew, he received extra money. It was said to be compensation for clothes, but in reality, it was a reward for saving people. The other fishermen and ferrymen received shopping coupons that were sealed in plastic. This shopping coupon can only be bought from Luoyang or Chang'an. It's quite far. How much can one buy? A fisherman was more practical. He was not very smart. He looked at the coupon and fretted. Beside him, a woman who sold seasonal fruits to passenger ships along the river glanced at him. "Third cripple, is your brain broken?" "I'm not a cripple. I hurt my leg that year and was crippled for 3 months. I've already recovered. Why is there no end to this?" Third cripple was unhappy. "I'll tell you how to spin your shopping coupon." The woman pointed at the coupon. "You tell me, and I'll buy your fruits next time." Third cripple made a deal. "No, you're too stupid. I'll be scolded if I take too much money from you. I'll feel bad if I take too little. If you sell it to the rich people on the passing passenger ships, so be it if you cheat them. Look at your shopping coupon. Have you seen the things outside? If you sell it to the rich, they'll fight for it. Li Dongzhu can't give you money directly. You saved people should be rewarded." So he changed his method. "Do you really want to go to Luoyang's fragrance pavilion to buy things? You won't be able to afford it." The woman selling seasonal fruits was smart and patiently instructed him. She was always selling expensive fruit to rich passengers. She was eloquent and clever. She was equally excited at this moment. Today's rescue mission was too grand. They fell like dumplings. Li Dongzhu and the winged knights jumped down without thinking. When old Gu was around, the neighborhood was harmonious. He couldn't leave behind any trouble after he left. Unless they deliberately did something bad, such as the empire that had already set, They didn't forget to dig holes when they evacuated from their colonies. Many years later, it still existed in the form of the Federation, and it still felt that the sun never set. The Li family Zhuangzi would take over. It didn't matter who they sent. After all, they still had to rotate. It would be more beneficial to the neighbors. Listen to Li Dongzhu. Gu Xian was as straightforward as when he had agreed to go to Luoyang. He had come into contact with many wealthy people, and his way of thinking was different from ordinary people. People from rich families were used to beating around the bush. He was already used to it. However, when he met Li Yi, he realized that people who had reached a certain height were sometimes very direct. I'll get ready. I'll let you help with the training. Swimming. You have to tell us about your skills. Li Yi was indeed direct. What did he want to do with the people? I can't say. Gu Xian showed a distressed expression. I don't need you to tell me. I'll build a swimming pool. You can swim in it. Li Yi didn't care. He didn't expect him to tell him at all. Okay. Gu Xian was relieved. The other people were eating breakfast, but they weren't told that Li Yi was leaving. They shouldn't be sad about parting while eating. They should wait until night time. Many drones flew out to check on the incoming Southwest Barbarian team. They set off from the upper reaches of the Yangtze River. They brought their own batteries. A group of them had to fly more than 100 kilometers. A single drone could fly one way, but it couldn't fly back and forth. Therefore, some drones had to give their batteries to their companions and fly back, while they still had electricity. It was impossible to control the tanker in the air with a remote control. The battery port was too small. One mistake, and it would either hit or miss. The drones were managed by the system. They needed their presence now, so they worked very hard. They saw a total of 7 ships. There were people sitting on the deck. They were definitely overloaded. Old Joe, look. Are you all poor? Li Yi held a bun in his hand and pulled Zhou Gang to watch the video. The drone was filming. Li Dongzhu, are you selling this thing? Zhou Gang was interested in the drone. It was too convenient to find people in the jungle. The camera zoomed in, and it felt very high. But the expressions of the people on the deck could be seen clearly. Not selling. Sigh. Let the drone tell the ships downstream to avoid them. Li Yi was troubled. Why did you all hire other people to save money? You all are overloaded. The people who are hired are also daring. How deep is the draft of the ship? Are you all not worried about hitting the reefs? Or will the ship hit the shore due to inertia? Just like husband and wife, when you're in love, when you're fighting each other, no one will back down. Without the art of living, it's not fun anymore. Let's disperse. Normally, when the woman throws a tantrum, the man will coax her. When the man gets angry, the woman will become gentle. When life is stressful, you should think about the original intention of getting together. Wasn't it because you were willing to face the wind and rain together that you got married? Li Yi and the chancellors got along like this. When it was time to compromise, they would compromise. When it was time to exchange, they would exchange. When it was time to be tough, they would be tough. Li Dongzhu, has Luoyang changed from before? Zhou Gang was quite envious. He wanted to be in the same position. He called the emperor brother, and there was no barrier between him and the chancellors. He kept calling them old by an old song. Of course, he was just thinking about it. He knew he did not have the ability. It's okay. There are more people, and it's more lively. You'll know when we get there. Our boat will go out with the current and bring seafood back for them. It's not good to come out empty-handed. You can't eat much seafood there, so it's good to satisfy your cravings. We can carry a lot. When we go back, see if we can still pull in river crabs. Li Yi was not willing to waste his breath to introduce Luoyang. From all aspects, did they still eat skewers? Did they drink alcohol? Of course, if it was Princess Yongmu who asked how Luoyang was like, Li Yi could write songs on the spot. They were by Juyi's Song of Everlasting Regret, Song of Pipa, and Zhang Ruox's Moonlit Night by the Spring River. Li Yi could write them all, depending on who he was facing and what his state was like. In front of him was Zhou Gang. Alive, right? Zhou Gang was indeed greedy. He was in the southwest, and there were few rivers. Where could he find seafood? It has to be alive. The greatest use of my boat is enjoyment. Oh, it's also quite useful in naval and water battles. Li Yi nodded. The yacht had a large space to store fresh things. It was specially prepared. It was not a submarine. Even if there was entertainment, the interior space was small. Li Dongzhu catch more. When the brothers reached Luoyang from the canal, let them have a taste. Zhou Gang made a request. He could guarantee that he could eat it. What about the others? He was not polite to Li Yi. Chapter 2050. The yacht flowed down the river, and the drones hovered around it. The night watchers on the shore were in a daze, unaware of the changes in the stars. The drones flew up and brought gifts to the night watchers. There were bought jerky and dried shrimps in the Yangtze River. Some people were guarding their homes, and the boat was their home. Others were guarding the ferry at night. The relay station not only had galloping horses on land, but also boats on the river. Urgent reports from 600 miles and 800 miles would not be missed, because it was difficult to cross the river at night. In the past, the relay station staff guarding the ferry would send 1 or 2 people to ferry a boat, and the people would give them an egg or a ball of dried rice flour. It was fine if they did not give it. The relay station staff guarding the ferry came and went to practice. This side and the opposite side were actually 2 different positions. They sent things in letters here, went upstream, and ran diagonally downstream to the opposite side when rowing. The opposite team was also running upstream, diagonally downstream from here. Everything was for the sake of speed. It was impossible to fight against the river's current. Even Li Yi's village ferry was staggered, unless they used motorized boats. Thank you for your hard work. The people of the Tang dynasty have no worries. They can only rely on you to guard day and night. A drone dropped a large package to the night watchers and flew away. Li Dongzhu is on the boat, right? He didn't give anything when he went last time. It's urgent. The night watchers looked at the drone's light spot and smiled. The people who came down the river said that Li Dongzhu flew to Yuzhou, only to fix a person's bone. When he saw the person, he had to return to Luoyang. His Majesty can't leave Li Dongzhu. I heard that there were 8,000 people who fell into the water. They were all rescued. At that time, in order to save people, Li Dongzhu made the Yangtze River flow backward. Didn't you notice that the water level of the river dropped for a period of time? I know. The fish ran to the shore on its own, as if it had grown legs. The night watchers said as they opened the package. The more they talked, the more amazing it became. The Yangtze River flowed backward. Even the purple dragon in the cartoon did not dare to be so arrogant. He was just making the water flow backward. That move was called Mingyao Taohai. It felt like that was how it was called. Translated, it was Lu Mountain Rising Dragon Lord. Meat floss, it's all meat floss. Fish, chicken, duck, pork. Where's the duck meat? You only know fish and chicken. You just started learning. Meat. I can't be bothered with you, as long as you're happy. Clang, clang, clang the crows caw. At dawn, Li Yi brought Princess Yongmu and Xiaolon to make breakfast, frying youtiao. If the child was like this, Li Yi would probably ask Gu Xian and his wife for their opinion. Would she be a eunuch after birth? No problem. Raise it. The little girl was sure. She just didn't see the unexpected situation. Gu Xian and his wife were happy. Gu Xian helped his wife wipe her stomach and said to raise a few more chickens in Luoyang to lay eggs. Eat fish. There are too many people raising chickens in Luoyang. You can go catch fish. What a good condition. If you want to eat fish, you can catch it yourself. The little girl corrected the other party's mistake. Why eat eggs? 2 eggs a day was enough. The rest of the time, eat fish. With Gu Xian's swimming ability, he didn't expect to fish for money. If he wanted to eat fish, he could easily jump into the river and catch it with his bare hands. Okay, eat fish. When we arrive, I'll go down to fish for shellfish. Gu Xian listened to the doctor and prepared to use the swimming goggles to show his true strength. It's time to eat. Hurry up and eat. The little robot shouted excitedly as if it could eat. The yacht's speed was still very fast. The drone flew in front, reminding the downstream ships to avoid or maintain their course. The sky was bright. Other drones flew to find stalls and people carrying poles to sell things. They saw what goods they could use and bought them on the yacht. They mainly bought seasonal fruits. As they moved forward, they also bought embroidery. The Sioux embroidery was beautiful. The people along the river already knew about the yacht. Even if they hadn't seen it, they would hear about it from others. Gu Xian brought his family to sit in a relatively quiet place in the restaurant. Li Yi deliberately arranged it. Otherwise, Gu Xian's parents would always have to deal with him. Zhou Gang and the Winged Knights ate together and talked about the southwest. Li Yi didn't want to soak the youtiao in soy milk. He adjusted the angle of the youtiao to bite, afraid that it would break the roof of his mouth. There's a lot of soy milk, so there will be dishes for lunch. Tofu, my favorite braised pork and tofu stew. Princess Yongmu praised the tofu. It would be better if there was no braised pork. There's also stir-fried tofu with minced meat inside, Xiaolon said after drinking soy milk. At noon, it will go into the sea. It's faster to go with the current. It's easier for others to avoid the yacht during the day. Li Yi didn't care about what to eat for lunch. Just cook. The drone took off and recorded the situation on both sides of the Yangtze River. It included the topography, hydrology, river banks, the clothes of the people, and the growth of trees. Chapter 2051. The wind on the river was not small, and the overturned boats moved back and forth endlessly. Compared to the north, the wind on the river was not cold. In the depths of the grassland, there were traces of plows on the snow. The horses pulled the plows and ran at a leisurely pace. Sacks were placed on the plows. The horses in front of them ran over, threw down a sack and left. The coachman stopped the horses and went over to open the sack. There were cut fodder inside. On one side, the plows pulled pine nuts, while on the other side, they transported grass and food. This created a spectacular scene that stretched for 1,500 kilometers. There were more than 150,000 people in the entire pine nut picking operation. It was estimated that after this one harvest, the production for the next 2 years would be very low. In a forest at the end of the line, 2 steam engines were working burning firewood. The pine towers are wet and hard to hit. Fortunately, 2 masters came with them to replace the damaged parts. Jiang Gang was standing beside a steam separator, talking to Fu Diji, the leader of the group. Many thanks to the craftsmen of the Li family Zhuangzi. There are many sheep. Fu Diji was happy. He was not afraid of the cold. According to him, 40 kilograms of pine nuts were worth the price of 1 sheep. His clansmen were arranged to stay beside the heavenly soldiers. There were warm paths and heated kong beds. All the men in the clan who could work came over, including the older children. The pine trees were tall, and the children climbed them quickly. A net was set up below, and the children were caught when they fell. When they first arrived, they could use a long pole to hit the pine nuts. Then, they found an empty space to dry them. They peeled them with their hands, but when they rubbed oil on their hands, they could not wash them clean with soap. Now that they had gloves, they could not dry them, and were directly thrown into the powerful machines. There were a total of 10 steam engines, and they were distributed in several places. At night, they lived in tents made of tree branches. The outside of the tents was covered by the skins of the wild beasts they hunted. The skins of the wild beasts were stained with blood and frozen hard. They could be used to block the wind. When it was cold, they went outside to warm themselves by the fire. There was a large iron pot over the fire, and soup was always boiling. No matter how cold it was, drinking a mouthful of hot soup would warm them up. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Fu Diji bowed in the direction of Chang'an. Suddenly thinking of something, he changed direction and bowed again in the direction of Luoyang. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for giving my clansmen a stable and good life. It's more because of your diligence and willingness to work hard," Jiang Gang praised. "Were we not hardworking in the past? It's for the good of Your Majesty." Fu Diji corrected Jiang Gang's mistake. "Did His Majesty not treat you well in the past?" Jiang Gang questioned. Fu Di was stunned. He looked at Jiang Gang and said at the same time, "It's the later Turks' fault. Next year, we'll think of a way to plant pine trees. Even if it takes many years to produce pine nuts, the trees won't affect other things." Jiang Gang saw a huge economic income. Now none of the trees used for firewood were red pines. It took more than 20 years for the pine pagoda to grow. Pine nuts were produced every year. Pine nuts were so expensive that they couldn't bear to hurt the trees. The young pine cones should not be touched. Wait until they grow up next year. The pine nuts from a few pine trees were equivalent to raising a sheep. How tiring was it to raise a sheep? There were so many red pines in the mountains. How many sheep were there? Send people to guard it. Whoever dares to set it on fire will be killed. Fu Difu had taken a liking to the red pine forest. It was all about money. In the past, his clansmen had chopped down many red pines. The wood was good. Chopping down a tree had many uses, such as burning a fire. Of course, send people to guard it. There are also pine mushrooms. Pine mushrooms are also expensive in Chang and in Luoyang. Dried pine mushrooms are more expensive than pine nuts. Jianggang knew the market. The people of the Li family Zhuangzi loved to eat pine mushrooms and blood-red rivet mushrooms. Monkey's head mushrooms were also good, but they could be planted. The Li Dongzhu had the ability to grow them. There were also wood ears. Pine mushrooms couldn't be grown, but everyone liked to eat them. In the end, the rich learned to eat them. My clansmen will arrange it. Send a few people to keep an eye on it. Fu Difu expressed. He took the initiative to ask others to supervise it. It's fine with you guys. Jiang Gang looked relieved. Anyway, the other party wouldn't ask for the pine nuts. He could only sell them to the Li family Zhuangzi. If they picked more, the price would decrease. They had to wait until they could pick more. How could they not distribute the benefits well? Whoever dares to hide or sell privately will be punished by the clan law. Fu Difu was touched. He really treated his clansmen as his own people of the Tang dynasty. He had already given the good arrows to the Tang dynasty. Each arrow was about the same weight and length. This included other knives and tools. They didn't monitor the place where his clansmen lived. They could rebel at any time if they wanted to. But the clansmen didn't have the intention to rebel. They didn't belong to the surrendering family and lived a normal life. If they could suddenly kill the military forces of the Tang dynasty when they were unprepared, what would happen after that? There were so many bags of explosives, sky-piercing monkeys, and guns. Wouldn't their clan be wiped out? As they were talking, another pile of mature pine trees was dragged out of the forest on a sleigh. They wore masks on their faces. Their mouths, noses, and eyes were exposed. Everything else was covered. When they breathed, a layer of frost appeared on their masks and eyelashes. The longer eyelashes had ice particles on them. In fact, their requirements were very low. As long as their hands, feet, and ears didn't freeze, they could withstand the cold. A group of people came over and hid in the enclosure. They found their own leather boots, wiped their feet with a hot towel, and put them on. They took off their boots and continued to roast them. After one round of roasting, they could wear them for 4 to 6 hours. They were afraid that they would sweat too much. Once they were cold, their feet would start to freeze unless they exercised vigorously. When Li Yi was patrolling the border in the north, his material skills were good enough. Their feet would freeze if they stayed in the snow for a long time. They could only withstand it. They couldn't let the border guards wear spacesuits. It wouldn't be cold, but it would tire them to death. The group that came back was not responsible for the follow-up matters. They first rested, drank hot soup, and sat together to chat happily. Fu Diji and Jiang Gang went forward to look at the state of the people. There were people from other clans. When they were with the later Turks, they had to do it. They were beaten up. When the later Turks couldn't fight, they quickly joined the Tang dynasty. Anyway, they would follow whoever was stronger. Kai Songzi and the others participated. In addition, there were people from the Heavenly Soldiers Army and the Henji Army. When the distribution was based on the number of people, the Heavenly Soldiers Army and the Henji Army received an additional 20%. The logistics were handled by the Tang dynasty. 20% of the cost was for logistics. Others agreed. Anyway, they couldn't handle the same logistics. Even if they were given an additional 50%, they wouldn't be able to. As for eating from the same pot and not putting in effort, only the number of people was counted. The result was obvious. The number of people who put in effort was counted. It was still the number of people. There was nothing that people couldn't solve. Use the moving machine? Fu Diji asked his clansmen. No need. There's still a lot. The children are very hardworking. When we go back, bring them meat porridge. Fu Diji's clansmen reported that the children climbed up and hit the pine tree. There was a small house made of leather below. When the children were tired, they went in to rest. Many water bags were filled with hot water to warm the children. The same tree branch, the children were fine, but the adults broke it. Many times every day, there would be children falling down. When they lost their balance, they couldn't catch them or step on them firmly. The adults below supported the net. When the pine tree fell, they shook the net and went up. When the children came down, they had to catch them. Their arms were wrapped around the edges of the net. So far, none of the children fell. All of them were caught. Chapter 2052. The other tribesmen smiled gratefully at Jiang. Due to the low temperature, their facial muscles were stiff, and their smiles were uglier than crying. They did not care who made the decision behind the scenes. They only knew that Jiang was responsible for it. If Jiang did not help to contact them, how would Her Majesty know? They had just surrendered this year, and immediately arranged things for them to do. They just had to collect their weapons. Unlike the tribesmen of Fudifu. Even so, it was not bad. There was nothing to do in winter to earn money. Winter consumed the harvest of summer and autumn. In autumn, they stored the grass and waited for winter to come. The heavy snow 2 days ago this year, when they surrendered to the Tang dynasty. Sigh. They did not dare to think about it. People in their 20s and 30s had never encountered such heavy snow. They were picking pine nuts at that time. The front and back teams all entered the forest and relied on the trees to block the snow. After that, they rode horses and plows to rescue. Everyone was fine. There were more people and more supplies. Family was the most important. The people who came to rescue said that the place where they lived was safe. In terms of losses, there were fewer sheep. Everyone killed them to drink mutton soup. Removing snow was tiring. In comparison, the other tribesmen found that their current lives were better. At most half a month. Let's end the pine nut picking activity and go home to live on a hot Kong. Jiang thought that everyone was anxious. Half a month is not enough. It's better to go back before the new year. Indeed, some people were anxious and thought that time was too short. He worked in the forest and earned money every day, feeding sheep to his left and right. People can bear it, but horses are tired. Winter should be for the animals to rest and fatten up. A batch of horses will not be able to move when they go back. A new batch of horses will not be able to fatten up in a month. If we keep changing horses, the Tianbing army and the Henji army will not be able to fight anymore. Jiang felt sorry for the horses. They had to run 1,500 to 600 miles in the snow. Going back was the same distance. The extra 20% was too little. Adding another 20% was more like it. The people who objected just now lowered their heads and did not say anything. He remembered that the transportation horses were all military horses. They could not be ordered around. Come next autumn. Winter is not suitable for pine nuts, but hunting is fine. Jiang comforted everyone. Next year it would be better. In his heart, he thought that they would start farming next year. Everyone would have work to do. How to teach a group of nomadic tribes to farm. According to Dongzhu, the position of the muscles in the body was different. For those who were good at horse riding, if they were asked to plant rice seedlings, they would be so tired that they would fall into the paddy field in half a day, or they would sit down and plant rice seedlings while walking. Why don't you just walk forward and plant rice? If he stepped on a seedling, he would spread his legs and bend over. If the seedling avoided him, he would be crippled. Time to fill the soup, time to fill the soup. Seeing that there was not much time left, someone urged everyone to hurry up and get to work. Can we go back in half a month? In the northeast region, the tribal leader Ajin looked at the huge team and asked Liandong. A month? Liandong wasn't sure. The team had swelled to 50,000 new members. Including them, there were more than 56,000 people, both old and young. Among them, the older ones had a lower status in the tribe and should be eliminated in winter. He didn't know how many more heavy snowfalls there would be this year. Rather than leaving the tribe and dying, he might as well sell himself, make money for the tribe, and follow them to the Tang dynasty. It would be best if he lived, but he would have no regrets if he died. The children and women in the team were pure slaves who were bought. Generally, the children were weak and the strong ones were not sold. Other male slaves who didn't follow the tribe to the Tang dynasty were in poor health. They took the opportunity to sell them. They didn't want to die in his hands. Li Endong and the others didn't refuse. Their requirements were simple. As long as they could live to see Dongzhu, they could be cured. Of course, if there were strong slaves, the goods would be good. The other party couldn't find poor slaves, and they coveted good things, so they could only exchange. After the exchange, the remaining goods were handed over to Dezworong. It was agreed that they would bring the goods next year. Kerosene lamps, thermos bottles, small mirrors. If someone's broke, they would exchange with him. When the goods were shipped next year, they would bring them over and exchange for new ones. Dezworong agreed very quickly. Li Endong always felt that the other party wanted to take advantage of others' money to sell at a high price and make a profit. He didn't care. Anyway, he couldn't bring the goods back to Zhuangzi. I promised to go back before the new year, Fan Fan said. It was safe to go to the seaside. When the telegram was sent, the ships by the seaside were already ready. They received people and sent them to Haizhou. From there, they took a train to Luoyang. The southwestern barbarians were tired and looked after the weak. At noon, there was a relatively flat place ahead. They set up camp. The southwestern barbarians were responsible for cooking. They didn't know how to cook stew. The big pot depended on the situation. The body was strong and had more fat in the meat. The thin and weak people were stewed skin, tendons, liver, and lean meat. The thin people didn't eat fat for a long time and suddenly had diarrhea after eating oil. There was no problem with protein and collagen, not to mention carbohydrates. If someone was allergic to protein, there was no need to wait until now. They would have died long ago. The strong women who were breastfeeding at a high price would feed their own children, and then feed the thin children of the thin and weak women. They ate the best food. The fish under the ice were quickly cleaned up. When it was frozen hard, they would melt it and stew it for them. There were also wild boar thighs and elbows. They didn't put any salt. They were allowed to eat salted vegetables, but the amount was controlled. Because a pork shoulder could taste salty, the salt used was guaranteed to be more than the salted vegetables. Salt was a matter of taste. Eating a little salted vegetables made them feel comfortable. It was like drinking soup. With a big bowl of soup and a small spoon of salt, one wouldn't feel salty. If they made salted vegetables separately and put half a spoon of salt, one would feel salty after eating a mouthful. Drinking a big bowl of soup without salt and salted vegetables with 1/3 of a spoon of salt was very comfortable. But the salt intake would be reduced. This was the measure taken for the wet nurses in the team. The wet nurses understood and were willing to pay. They had agreed that when they returned home, they would enjoy additional benefits. They were full of yearning for the home they were looking forward to. As long as they didn't take the initiative to stop breastfeeding, there would always be milk provided. Gradually provide them with meat with more oil. Without oil, they won't be able to withstand the cold. Fan Fan drank half a bowl of meat soup to warm his stomach. After taking a stroll, he came back to talk to Li Endong and the others. Tomorrow, after a few days of recuperation, we should indeed give them oil. Li Endong nodded. I finally know what it means to be weak and not be nourished. Obviously, there is a lack of oil, but we can't give them a lot of oil. Sometimes, it's even more difficult to use medicine. If we don't use strong medicine, the patient will die. If we use strong medicine, the patient will die. Li Bei believed that he had comprehended the true essence of medicine and went back to study medicine. Our Dongzhu is not afraid. At worst, we can, what's it called again? Oh, support the treatment. Li Endong swallowed the meat in his mouth and said while suppressing his disgust. He was tired of eating meat. He usually didn't lack meat to eat. At present, he gritted his teeth and persevered. If he didn't eat, his body wouldn't be able to bear it. When he returned to Zhuangzi, he would look for Dongzi to recuperate. Yes, let them recuperate well. Only then can we speed up. Li Endong ate 2 more mouthfuls of salted vegetables. At worst, he could drink more water. Stabilize your emotions. The more we return, the more testing it will be. Fan Fan reminded him to avoid any problems. Chapter 2053. After the meal, everyone began to rest. They had just left Dezworong city 2 days ago. The slaves and tribesmen were afraid that Dezworong would regret seeing a large group of people run away. They hurried on their way as if they were being chased. When they were far away, they were relieved. They were all exhausted. At the camp for lunch, Fan Fan asked to rest until the next morning to give the people in the team time to recover. The Southwest barbarians scattered to every corner of the camp, so that they could see their people everywhere to make others feel at ease. At the moment, everyone was sleeping. Different snoring sounds began to play. The sound of the tide did not sound so monotonous. There was piano music on the boat. Everyone was eating in the dining hall. The wind was strong outside. The yacht finally rushed out of the Yangtze River. Once it entered the sea, there was no more scruples. The instrument showed that the speed was 35 knots. Lee was very suspicious. He felt that the wind on the deck was the same as when he drove more than 150 kilometers. He was sure that it was not because of the strong wind on the sea. There was something wrong with the boat. He did not believe it. He looked at the surrounding boats on the beach. They were falling back like the trees on the side of the road. Li Lang, why do I feel that it is faster than the last time we went out to sea? At that time, it was 40 knots and we were running in the sea. Princess Yongmu also felt that the situation was not right. In front of her was braised pork stewed with tofu. There was fresh tofu and oiled tofu inside. It's okay. Li could only say so. He did not want to ask the system. The system never spoke to him. It only expressed in words. When he used the system, he checked the information. When the yacht sailed, he used the intelligence system on the yacht. Obviously, the intelligence system on the yacht could not control so many drones. It was even more impossible to complete the drift in an instant, while avoiding others on the water. He could not control it. The system did not listen to him. So be it. Gu Xian's wife Gazhaxana was also eating stewed tofu. Now it should be the fish in the Yangtze River. There was no shortage of any kind. If you want to eat shad, you can eat shad. If you want to eat shad, you can eat shad. Pufferfish was not a problem. Li could deal with poisonous and non-poisonous ones. Shad was not valuable now. Gazhaxana's husband could catch any fish easily. What was valuable was that Li made it himself for the child in her belly. The two boys of Gushuan's family ate the tofu brew. They first fried it, then added the stuffing, and steamed it in the pot. Gu Xian's parents ate fried tofu, home-style tofu, and tofu with shallot and egg. Li was very happy today. He made a tofu feast, and no one asked him anything in the imperial court. He could finally do what he wanted to do. Aya, this could be considered as ugh. Chapter 2054. Gu Xian, this is for you. You don't need the fins, but you must carry the oxygen tank properly. Li said to Gu Xian, who was still in a daze. He dragged a set of equipment over and taught Gu Xian how to use it. At the back of the yacht, the small robots went down first. They moved slowly, so they could only help carry the net and light up. Li continued to teach Gu Xian how to use the diving equipment. Gu Xian went down and tried it. When he came up to change the oxygen tank again, he was speechless for a long time. He felt that anyone who wore this equipment would not be worse than him. He relied on his talent, and others used their skills to make up for it. Talent is worthless. After a while, Gu Xian said in a slightly lonely voice, "You underestimate talent. If you wear the same equipment, you will still crush others. With such a big oxygen tank, others will use it in less than 3 minutes. You can use it in 2 hours. You can dive for a long time, not only because you have a big lung capacity, but also because you can supply oxygen to your heart and brain." Li was still so envious and jealous. Different people had different oxygen consumption. Really? Gu Xian asked. He wanted to regain his confidence from Li Yi's answer. You will understand when you compare the number of times you will go down, and the number of times you will come up to change the oxygen tank. But this refers to me and the winged knights. You should compare it to when Tian and Xiaolan. After they go down and come up, they have to rest for a while. They can't keep changing oxygen tanks. Normal people. Li Yi said the premise first. He and the winged knights were not normal people who could keep changing oxygen tanks. Normal people after diving once came up to rest. 5 meters of water was half the atmospheric pressure. How did people get drunk from oxygen in the highlands? The atmospheric pressure was a problem, and the oxygen content in the air was high. Diving with oxygen was the same. After going down continuously and coming up to breathe normally, it was like being in a highland environment. There would be a lack of oxygen, which would lead to asthma and insufficient blood oxygen exchange in the lungs. He and the winged knights had received special training, and it was a training program that he had designed. Gu Xian's mood became better after hearing this. It turned out that his talent was still useful. Everyone went into the water, and the small robots slowly looked for people to load things. The people who went down were scanned by the sonar, and the small robots could easily catch them. The yacht was docked in a good position. They could slowly adjust their position according to the current. If they didn't change their position, they would hit the reef. The yacht was located next to a group of submerged reefs, providing the best service for scuba divers. If it were any other ship of the same size, it would definitely crack. Gu Xian went down and turned around to take a look. Under the light he quivered. He saw that the bottom of the boat was less than a meter away from a submerged reef. He could feel the rapid flow of water. The yacht's oars were round. With a slight movement and a shake of the rudder, the impact of the current was offset. The bottom of the yacht was still the same from the reef. This was not his boat, so how did he control it? Don't be in a daze. Hurry up and pick the conch. Li Yi's voice rang in Gu Xian's ears. He was wearing earphones, and there was a device at his throat that could make sounds through vibration. For a moment he discovered a new world. He agreed and immediately went to look for things. Some shellfish and snails can be found on the surface of the water and on the reefs, but there are many large ones underwater. There are also wild sea cucumbers here, but they are harder to find than snails. Without a water mirror, they have to dive naked and use nets to try their luck. Now everyone has small electric hammers and small nets in their hands. They dig for snails, scallops, and sea cucumbers. They don't touch the fish, and it's hard to catch them. They don't care about the fish. The slow little robot finds fish with medicinal swim bladders, such as Chinese bahaba fish. When the fish swims to the side, it extends an extra rod. There is no movement, but sparks can be seen. This time a few fish around stopped moving. Yes, they are electrocuting the fish. The little robot behind quickly catches the fish with the net. They are all medicinal. There are also drones with small nets flying close to the surface of the water to catch the electrocuted fish. The little robot moves slowly. Sometimes it's too late, and the fish floats up. So, according to the current behavior, if it was Li Yi's time and there was no background, when they catch enough fish, the money to buy the yacht would not be enough to fish everyone out. Li Yi didn't have a license, but he caught a lot and used electricity. Look at how many fishermen are watching. The impact is very bad, and the situation is very serious. The most unforgivable thing is that the yacht even sent out drones to give the fishermen diving goggles with lights. The fishermen put on the goggles to get used to it and jumped into the water to help. Both sides didn't talk about the price, and the fishermen were bewitched. When it's past 10 at night, Li Yi can't take it anymore. He called the winged knights and the fishermen onto the boat. Gu Xian still wants to persist, but when he saw his wife standing on the deck looking down, he didn't say anything and went to rest. Eat, drink. This is barbecued meat skewers? Okay, meat skewers it is. Li Yi doesn't know what to eat. Seeing the real thing, he called everyone over to enjoy. The little robot asked me what to eat. I said dumplings. It said it's not good to go into the water. It's better to eat meat and drink. Coincidentally, we used the drone to buy mutton on the way. Xiaolan, Brother Gu's family, and I made skewers with the help of the little robot. We barbecued them with electricity. Princess Yongmu explained the situation. She and Xiaolan stayed underwater for less than half an hour before coming up. They can't eat dumplings. The pressure in the water is too high. When it presses on the stomach, the dumplings contain a lot of water. It's easy to have gastric acid and vomit. Previously, they went down to eat eggs and meat. They didn't eat porridge because they were afraid of feeling uncomfortable. Now that they are resting, they still have to go down in the morning. There are 101 fishermen who helped. When the drone sent them the tools to go into the water, they didn't say anything. They didn't have oxygen tanks and needed to come up to take a breath from time to time. They were all exhausted. At this moment they drank wine first. It was white wine, 52% alcohol. After taking a sip, they began to pant heavily. However, they didn't let go of their diving goggles and looked at it over and over again. They looked at it, touched the light switch, and quickly turned it off. They didn't know about electricity, but they knew that it was like a candle. It would disappear after a while. Li saw this and frowned. Li Lang. Princess Yongmu's face was red as she asked with concern. I gave them the primary charger. Will they always dive for things with it? It's very harmful to the body. Li Yi was conflicted. He never took the initiative to encourage people to fish for pearls by the sea. The more he encouraged them, the more desperate they would be. Especially when many of the people fishing for pearls were women. They would dive dozens of meters deep. There were also the soldiers at the border. If he went to comfort them and gave them his fur coat in winter, they would die on the battlefield. If you don't give it to them, won't they fish for it? With something, they can earn more money in the same amount of time. Gu Xian's father came over and said to Li Yi. When he spoke, his legs were trembling. He was afraid. Uncle, sit. Li Yi got up and helped him sit down. Uncle is right. We should give it to them. Li Yi decided to give each of the 101 fishermen a hand-cranked generator. He also gave them diving goggles with lights. If they broke, there was no need to worry. They could send them to the courier station and pay the postage when they reached the place. They could get a new one. Chapter 2055. As for the items, I'll lend them to you. I'll lend them to you as well. Li Yi made up his mind and told the 101 fishermen. He also left some soap on the water mirror. The effect was not as good as a professional, but it would still be useful. 101 fishermen represented 65 households. The women did not come, so the surrounding fishermen represented 65 households. When they entered the water, they were naked. When they boarded the boat, they were given large pants. When they went out, they would wear clothes made of woven silk, which was considered a local tribute. There were even better woolen silk. They could only look at it, but they could not afford it. The local tributes were woolen silk, woven silk, hua yam, aconite, and seafood. The hua yam was called Dioscoria. The fishermen on the small islands were poor. They had a single source of income and were not competitive. They had no external funds, technology, and local government support. Li gave them the tools, and then the Tang dynasty expanded to the Tianxia Fund. The Zhoushan archipelago was ignored by the Tang dynasty because of its small population. However, this was very important. Shanghai was only a small area, and part of Jiangsu was in the sea. The Zhoushan archipelago was the outermost island group. It was convenient for ships to dock, and it could be used as a supply point. Even during Li Yi's time, the Zhoushan archipelago was only conquered by the ruling party in 1950. If foreign ships wanted to attack, or if their ships could not find a place, the Zhoushan archipelago could build a lighthouse to store soldiers and food. The coastal areas were unstable, and it was not conducive to the development of sea trade. Ocean trade made money, and the coastal people did not have enough facilities. They could only watch others make money, and in the end, people took risks to survive. Since he knew what would happen in advance, Li Yi prepared in advance. He did not want to wait for problems to arise before dealing with them. Coincidentally, the Zhoushan archipelago was connected to the Tang dynasty's territory. There were many sea vegetables around the islands, and it was suitable for raising pigs. When the fishermen heard this, they finally put down their things and focused on the mutton skewers again. The mutton skewers were already theirs. At least they could use it freely, and they did not have to worry about losing it. The mutton skewers were definitely good stuff. They had only eaten mutton a few times, and it was too expensive, not to mention barbecuing it. They sipped some white wine and ate a big mouthful of meat. As they chewed, they were filled with happiness. After 2 mouthfuls, their spirits suddenly dropped, as if they had contracted an infectious disease. The winged knights have already sent skewers of meat to your families on the island, as well as wine made from glutinous rice. Don't worry. Li Yi smiled at those who were in a bad mood, and said that he had already made arrangements. It was impossible to give some people good food and make them not think about their families. Their homes were separated by hundreds or thousands of miles. There was nothing he could do but miss her. He was clearly eating and drinking right next to them. But what were his parents, wife, and children eating and drinking? When the imperial court held a banquet, officials were allowed to bring food boxes home. The Li family Zhuangzi gave more benefits to the officials. Therefore, the officials of the governor's office were honest and clean, so there was no excuse for corruption. Li Dongzhu, don't worry. I promise that I'll fish up more things in the water in the middle of the night. Someone stated that the only thing he could offer was his physical strength. The others chimed in, looking as if they were going to risk their lives. Good. I'll bring it back for His Majesty to eat. But if His Majesty doesn't want to eat something exchanged with his life, even if one person dies, I'll throw everything we fish up into the sea. Li Yi warned that if you don't want to live, I'm afraid. He was clearly bringing back food for everyone to eat, but there were lives on it. Li Dongzhu, we know. We don't want to die, so we promise not to cause trouble for you. Another person patted his chest. Everyone ate until they were half full and rested. At 2 a.m, everyone formed teams and went down again. Princess Yongmu and the others went to bed early, so they didn't accompany him. The sky was dark, and the water was even darker. Under the light, fish swam close to the side. Li Yi swam and felt that something was wrong. He turned his head and met a pair of eyes. He was startled and almost exchanged for a fishing spear underwater. Wait a second, a dolphin. Don't poke me with your head. If you poke me in the wrong place, I'll bleed internally. Look, there are fish over there. Go eat. Li Yi muttered in the water, regardless of whether the other party could understand or not. The dolphin seemed to understand. It went over and ate a fish, then turned around and swam back, continuing to look at Li Yi. I'm digging for dog claw snails now. Look, you can't help with this thing. I'll light it up for you to find fish to eat. Don't poke me. Li Yi muttered again, and approached the little robot. The little robot had a stun baton. He said to the little robot, don't electrocute the fish first. Protect everyone. If you find a dolphin, don't know if there are sharks. If you encounter a shark, deal with it directly. The little robots began to arrange positions. At the same time, a little robot said to Li Yi, there are no sharks. Prevent the dolphin from hitting people. Yes, there are no sharks. Li Yi was sure that there was a sonar radar on the yacht. The shark and dolphin system can be distinguished, so this dolphin will follow. At 5 a.m, the sun jumped out of the sea. Li Yi and others boarded the boat. There were more than a dozen dolphins swimming around the yacht, their heads popping out of the water to look up. I don't have anything for you. You can catch fish to eat. Do you eat salt? Li Yi looked down and thought about feeding the dolphins some large grains of salt. Horses, cows, sheep, and other animals like to eat salt. The dolphins living in the sea probably couldn't find salt. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The dolphins suddenly ran away, probably afraid that Li Yi would feed them large grains of salt. They went to find food. The fisherman next to him was familiar with the situation. Let's also eat and sleep. We'll fish again in the afternoon, and return to Luoyang in the evening. It seems that we can arrive on the 9th day, half a day earlier. Li Yi yawned, and went back to the restaurant to eat. He also gave Wan Zhaoyuan and 4 drip. Wan Zhaoyuan was in a good mental state, but he was always groaning in pain. In the past, when he was injured and didn't make a sound, everyone always asked about him with concern, especially his wife. Now that he made a sound, his wife would occasionally smile at him. Breakfast was fish-stuffed wontons. The skin was big and the filling was small. The skin was more expensive than the filling. Actually, it's possible to make meat swallow skin with fish and glutinous rice. It's just that no one is willing to do it. The main reason is the lack of sales. Li Yi thought of meat swallow when he was eating wontons. Without white flour, how could he make the skin? He also wanted to eat the filling. He could only think of other things to replace it. Leave behind the tools? Princess Yongmu gave Li Yi cucumber and pickled vegetables. The cucumber she bought was very tasty. After soaking it in the water, the pickled vegetables would have a chewy texture. No. When we go back, I'll find a craftsman to make it. Then, there are a bunch of them on this island. They can learn from the people on our island. Li Yi put it on the agenda. It was best to have tools to make meat swallow skin. It was too strenuous to use a stick to beat the fish. Just use a roller to squeeze the fish. Fish don't have bones. The people on this island made meat swallow skin, packaged it, and sold it at a high price. When the people on other islands saw it, they would definitely want to learn. There was a problem involved: how to preserve it. Chapter 2056. Li Lang, can you dry the skin of the swallow's meat and smoke it when you wrap it? Princess Yongmu guessed what Li Yi was thinking. Once the pancakes were dry, the scallions could be rolled up again after steaming them. There was a grate on top of a large iron pot used for cooking. The water below boiled. The fire was removed, and the dried pancakes were placed on the grate for a short while. Yes, Li Yi agreed with this method. He drank a mouthful of bone soup in his wonton bowl. The local department has a lot of starch. It can come in handy. It's another process. I know, Xiaolan said from the side. Make starch. When you dry the swallow skin, apply it so that it won't stick. You need a department to process starch. Yes, Li Yi agreed again. Now everyone knew how to do it. There were a lot of yams in the local area, but the people didn't like to eat them. They tried not to eat yams if they had other things. The human body could not absorb much sugar powder. It was good to eat yams to lose weight and feel full. The people of the Tang dynasty didn't want to lose weight. They ate yams all day and didn't have the strength to work. Of course, yams were better than tree bark and grass roots. When there was enough indica rice, glutinous rice, millet, sorghum, and yellow rice, yams could be used as vegetables to make soup and stew. Princess Yongmu smiled. In the future, there will be several swallow skin processing workshops on a group of islands. At least one of them will be a department to process starch. Xiaolan said. If you need transportation, send a batch to Luoyang through the canal. Is it convenient to go by sea? Change trains at Haizhou. It's faster to change from sea to railway. The wind at sea is strong, and it's easy to adjust the sails. I think that when the time comes, the grain ships from Jiangnan will have to go by sea. It just so happens that the second rail is being repaired. At that time, the canal will be more suitable to transport things downstream to the Yangtze River, or to the estuary of the Yangtze River to the sea, and continue to send things to Quanzhou and other places. Li Yi thought of the main transportation channel in the future. There was no railway in Haizhou, so the ships entered the Yellow River through the canal. If there was a railway, why would they go against the current through the canal? The ships had flat bottoms, and were not suitable for the sea. If there was a dock in the middle, the ships would be sent to load the ships. More loading and unloading time would be saved. From Haizhou to Chang'an, how many days would it take for the ships to go from Luoyang to Chang'an? The Yellow River cannot flow in reverse. The three of them talked about how to help the place, and the future transportation channels. At first, the surrounding fishermen heard the commotion, but as they listened, they realized that Li Dongzhu, Princess Yongmu, and Xiaolan were thinking of ways to help them earn money. What a good official! What a good princess! What a good maid! Someone was excited. Thinking that Xiaolan was just a maid, she boldly said to Li Yi, Li Dongzhu, shouldn't Xiaolan have an official position? I heard that there are officials there. He was referring to the palace, but he wasn't sure about the details. Official? Xiaolan looked over with a look that said, I don't want an official position. I'm good like this. Princess Yongmu should be managed by an official. The people of the left minister's office had to make arrangements. At the same time, the princess had the E-department, which consisted of the commander, the deputy, the official registrar, the clerk, the secretary, and the family historian. People like Xiaolan were nothing. She was just accompanying Princess Yongmu. She did not want an official position. What was the use of an official position? Which official had more power than her? Princess Yongmu had not opened her residence yet, but she enjoyed better treatment than before. She had a special women's team. She had a lot of maids, and a lot of female bodyguards with big shoulders and round waists. Xiaolan's status in Princess Yongmu was equivalent to Li Yi's status in the imperial court. Why would she want an official position? But, this person was frightened by Xiaolan's gaze and said submissively, But there's money for an official position. Money? Oh my God. Thank you. But I really don't want an official position. Xiaolon smiled. The other party was kind, but he used it in the wrong place. Oh. This person seemed to understand something, and quickly lowered his head to eat the wonton. How can you ignore the important matters of the imperial court because of the desire for food? In the Li family Zhuangzi on Luoyang Mountain, Song Jing was eating sheep's eye buns. He said that Li Yi went to fish for seafood in order to satisfy his appetite, and did not want to come back quickly. Zhang Jiuling, who was sitting next to him, looked at the 8 sheep's eye buns in the drawer, and then looked at Song Jing. He smiled and ate his own. 8 buns were normal. They were small, and did not need to eat too much in the morning. The buns were filled with beef, lamb, green onions, chives, eggs, shrimp, pickled vegetables, pork and celery, chicken, fish, mushrooms, and fungus. There were a total of 8 kinds, 1 for each. Last night, Song Jing said that he wanted to eat a few more kinds of buns, and make them smaller. Now that he was accusing Li Yi of going to fish for seafood in order to satisfy his appetite, Zhang Jiuling did not want to say anything. Xiao Yi's scallops can be used as stuffing for buns. It's better to be in the Li family Zhuangzi. Everyone who can come to my house can come. Chapter 2057. Let's set sail. Goodbye. When I return, I will bring all of you to live a good life together. Don't send me off. Don't send me off. In the evening there were still no stars. The drones rose into the sky and shone like stars. Li stood on the deck and waved goodbye. He looked like he couldn't bear to let others send him off too far. The fishermen stood on the fishing boats. If no one sent them off, how could they send their own boats off? They obviously couldn't keep up with the speed. Did they think they were dolphins? The fishermen didn't feel sad. They had agreed that they would mail the broken items back and write a letter. After a period of time, Li Dongzhu would send the items over, and they would earn a lot of money. The sadness of parting can't be washed away. Sigh. Let's go and see how much seafood we caught. A hint of worry appeared on Li Yi's face. After sighing, he turned around and pulled Princess Yongmu and Xiaolan to go look at the seafood. Senior sister, is Master hungry because he hasn't eaten dinner? Can you take Master's pulse when we eat? Li Guizong looked at his master and was worried. Go away, what do you know? Master is happy and can solve a problem. Xiaolan scolded her junior brother and walked a few steps before stopping. But I should take Master's pulse. It is indeed abnormal. The seawater is probably cold. See, I told you. Li Guizong proved himself. You said he was hungry, but I said the water was cold. Xiaolong glared at her junior brother. It's cold and hungry. Li Guizong was not convinced. Why are you right? When we go back, let the villagers have a taste. It should be enough for everyone in Zhuangzi. The rest can be eaten by third brother, and the rest for a few more days. Li looked at the dog claw snails that were raised in the cold environment. They were not small. He was happy. Zhoushan Archipelago was indeed a good place. Let's try it. Xiaolan thought about the number of villagers and nodded. There was a large group of craftsmen who came later and brought their families. They were probably still learning and looking at the blueprints, the new weights, the use of tools, and the simple processing of parts. After a few years, let's see if the railway can be built along the canal. It can be built in sections. Li Yi hated that he couldn't get the national road and railway network, from his era, to be the best in the world. Li Lang, with the railway, will the canals lose their function? Princess Yongmu asked with some reluctance. Yes, it's suitable for shipping bulk goods and has a long shelf life. If it was not used, the canal would naturally be abandoned. The canal was not only used for transportation, but also for diversion and flood control. If they didn't use it, they wouldn't clean it up or maintain it. If they encountered a flood, the price they would have to pay would be countless times higher than the time spent. Chapter 2061. Li Longji suddenly remembered that Brother Yi could use his lifespan to exchange for items. Who would dare to compete with him? All magic tricks required the item to be hidden somewhere. Brother Yi didn't need to hide it all. As for his lifespan, he knew that it could be recovered. Brother Yi, you must be careful. Don't lose your bottom line all of a sudden. Helping you is also helping myself. Li Longji reached out and picked up the clove of garlic. He passed it to the side and instructed, cut it into minced garlic. Everyone have a taste. Gao Lisha reached out with both hands. He also knew how precious this thing was. Normally, he would take things from the Li family Zhuangzi without hesitation. However, he didn't dare to let Li Yi exchange it for even a sesame seed. Xiaolan passed down the order. One Tianxiang Pavilion will send a crooked shovel to every household in Hunan Province who is planting greenhouses this year. In addition, give the blacksmiths in Hunan Province an order of 100 shovels. As for the rest, find the craftsmen from the Li family Zhuangzi to do the work and pay them. Li Lang, you must be tired from cooking. Eat a braised large scallop to nourish yourself. Open your mouth. Princess Yongmu instructed Xiaolan, who was sitting next to her. She picked up a large piece of scallop meat and placed it in front of Li Yi's mouth. Got it. Xiaolan stood up and found someone to make arrangements. It was good for the people's livelihood and replenished the lifespan of the garlic. Li Yi opened his mouth and ate the scallop meat. Delicious. Is braised scallop meat delicious? Li Longji asked. Princess Yongmu didn't say anything. She directly pushed the plate in front of Li Longji. Eat. Li Longji didn't know why, but he had the idea of making brother Yi conjure up a head of garlic. Empress Wang helped to pick up 2 pieces and push the plate back. When Tian is really filial to Sanlang, it doesn't matter even if you give me all your favorite food. Yes, yes. The chopsticks are too short to reach. Princess Yongmu reacted. It wasn't about the plate at all. This imperial father. Humph. Li Longji nodded. One is marked by the company one keeps. Since when Tian is with brother Yi, she won't be bad. It's nothing. It's just cooking a table full of dishes. Li Yi said. What's wrong? I cooked all the dishes. My future wife fed me a bite, and you're being picky? Ha 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 ha. Li Dan couldn't help but laugh loudly. This battle of words and schemes was simply too interesting. At this moment, both Bai Gu, who always looked forward, and Song Jing, who liked to find trouble with Li Yi, did not say anything. They lowered their heads and ate their food. Their family matters had nothing to do with him. However, the dishes were delicious. Eat more while they were still hot. Dongzhu Fan is calling. The team has returned. Heavy snow has resumed. The 5 new tribes have entered. Chapter 2063. The audience soon understood that the wind carried the snow. There was no shelter on the slope, so the snow would fall down the slope. The tents on the slope helped to block a lot of the snow, and the leeward area was on fire. It was not a small slope, but many small slopes arranged in the same way. The horses were arranged separately. Can you fight a war? Although Su Yi was the minister of war, he had never commanded a war before. You can beat the enemy to a pulp. Guazi gave the answer. Why? Su Yi was puzzled. When the Tang dynasty is in a battle formation, we must place our troops in front of any dangerous place. We don't defend the dangerous place to avoid having no room to attack. When the enemy is near, the Tang dynasty will send troops to attack first. We can't defend the dangerous place. Only when the soldiers at the front lose, and by time for the allies behind, will we gather the remaining troops to defend the dangerous place. Li Longji explained the reason. The Tang dynasty's troops did not need to rely on dangerous places to stop the enemy. The Tang dynasty's troops were not afraid of fighting the enemy in any terrain. They should be afraid of the enemy who wanted to sneak up on them. When the mountain in the animation was changed to war, the troops would be stationed at the foot of the mountain facing the wind, and only a few people would be on the mountain. The mountain facing the wind could not be given to the enemy. The enemy could not even look for opportunities at the foot of the mountain, because the Tang dynasty's troops would rush over. The dangerous place was to prevent the enemy from sneaking to the other side, and it could also reduce the enemy's escape route. Yes, the Tang dynasty's troops are so strong, Li Yi said with a proud expression. At least there was no problem now. The later period in history was over, just like the later period of the Song dynasty and the Ming dynasty. In the later period, Old Li was muddle-headed. Look at the people arranged by the prime ministers. They were all useless, far inferior to Yao Chong and Song Jing. But it didn't matter. He was not muddle-headed. The world was so big, and there were many territories that had not been occupied yet. Let's have a war. The premise was that the Tang dynasty's internal stability and economic development could keep up. If Old Li really could not do it, there was still the little fellow, who didn't want to be the emperor. I only provided a lot of money. Alas! Bai Gu pretentiously claimed credit. I am in charge of the Ministry of Revenue. This old man has trained craftsmen for the Li family Zhuangzi. Yao Chong said shamelessly. He had indeed trained craftsmen before. But the purpose Song Jing brought up an old topic. Do monks and Taoists fall sick? It's the kind of disease that doesn't give birth to water and soil. What about gang ro? Zhang Jiuling agreed with Song Jing's idea. Chapter 2064. The fire in the brazier in the tent with electricity and transmitter crackled, and the flying cavalry of the Yulin forest listened and responded. Fan Fan was resting. He was tired and didn't want anyone to die on the way back. He was glad that the old man in the team, who took the initiative to sell himself, was still strong. Without heavy work, the old man was more efficient than the young man. When the branches were cut down, the old man handled them properly. The young man didn't know how to use that skill. At the same time, the old man was calmer than the young man and didn't panic when something happened. It was good that the old man was leading the young man. At this moment, he heard Ajin's question and smiled. Dongzhu's arithmetic is good. He can calculate it. What about the details? I don't understand if you only talk about arithmetic. Ajin wanted to learn the details. Details? Oh, the details are that we measure the angle, distance, and draw a grid according to the method of making a map. Report the position, angle, and number to Dongzhu, and Dongzhu will use the data to map. After mapping, we will report the situation of everyone's leader. Whatever Dongzhu asks us, we will ask in your tribe. When the situation was reported, Dongzhu had a motionless map and moving character model. Through the model, Dongzhu can exchange data with us at any time. The angle and distance mapping needs a ruler, a straight line extension, projection comparison, triangles and trapezoids. General Fan, don't say any more. I don't want to learn. When Fan Fan was patiently and seriously teaching, Ajin stopped in time. He didn't want to know. The previous answer was better. Li Dongzhu's arithmetic is good. He can calculate it. You're also good at arithmetic. What I know is enough. Oh, it's actually not difficult. Fan Fan was a little regretful. Why was it so difficult to teach someone? When it came to the calculation method. Old Fan, have you forgotten how you cried when you were dreaming at night? One of the winged knights next to him teased. When did I cry? I was afraid that the water in the sea of questions was too little, so I helped to replenish it. Fan Fan refused to admit it. General Fan, what kind of sea is the sea of questions? Ajin was even more curious. There was a sea that scared General Fan to tears. Sea of questions? Oh, a sea of questions. The sea of questions was the sea of stars that one could look up at night. The sea of questions was the boundless sea of changing tides after the moon was full and waning. The sea of questions was filled with sweet memories and a slightly bitter sea of the heart. The sea of questions was the sea of homeland that you could never lose, even if you wandered for thousands of miles. The sea of questions unforgettable, the sea of questions with dreams. The sea of questions could make people instantly feel like they were covered in snow in the hot desert. He wanted to eat half of the chicken, and then take the remaining 1.5 to his friends. On the other side, the Li family Zhuangzi and Li Yi were also eating meat. However, he didn't eat meat. Instead, he ate fish, barbecued fish. Princess Yongmu and Xiaolan picked out the meat, and didn't let any bones on it. They fed it to Li Yi with chopsticks. Princess Golden Immortal watched and said to Princess True Jade, "Sister, if you feed your Ron as well, I think he will be extremely grateful." Is he worthy? Li Yi is being served by Yuan Yuan because he is qualified. If Yuan Yuan wants to fly, he can fly with her. If I want to fly, Ron won't use a hot air balloon unless he pushes me off a cliff. He can continue building roads. He has experience. Life is so unfair. Brother Emperor calls Li Yi Brother Yi. Princess True Jade shook her head. She wasn't much older than Li Yi. She could choose any man in the world, and countless men younger than her were willing. Only Li Yi's attitude was very clear. He didn't like her. We have to eat more fish in the future. What's wrong with saying it's protein? Beef is fine. As Princess Golden Immortal spoke, she took out a Buddhist scripture translated by Li Yi. She glanced at it, and threw it aside. It didn't talk about how to cultivate crop seeds. I'm not eating. Just 2 bites will do. I won't be able to drink if I eat too much, Li Yi said after eating another mouthful of fish. He was still listening to the situation and recording data. Li Lang, they are useful now. When the snow stops, the map will be useless. Xiaolon fed Li Yi beer. This is the first time I used this method. In the future, there will be no computers. I will use manual labor to complete the map. It's not just for rescue. It will be more useful when the artillery comes out. Recently, I've been learning the principles of mathematical modeling and familiarizing myself with computers. After that, I'll combine the existing models and see if I can create a model that is more suitable for the current environment. Li didn't care about the current situation. It had already stabilized and he was practicing. Some things couldn't be copied directly. He needed to familiarize himself with it while changing it. This learning process was very tiring, but he was willing. When he was done, he would bring the Winged Knights to play the new game. It was very interesting. Just thinking about it made him happy. Princess Yomu ate a piece of fish. Li Lang, you really don't need to go over and set it up? No need. The ground and underground have less advantages compared to the air. Besides, they are arranging it. How can I operate it if I go over? Li looked at the screen and pressed a series of shortcuts. He knew the monk and the Taoist's plan. They would bring a large group of people there. Then they would dig, set up poles, plant fake trees. If he went over, there would definitely be some interaction. It's just that most people have never thought of it before. Wang Han looked at them. He continued. Take advantage of the fact that the ground hasn't been frozen yet. Find a wasteland outside Luoyang and build a cellar. Store the autumn vegetables in the cellar. The commoners can prepare more vegetables for the winter, such as cabbages, radishes, and onions. When needed, they can go to the cellar and take out vegetables for half a month at a time. Build a cellar for every white household. It should be enough. Wang Han said his idea, and then looked at the others. Zhang Jiyun and Zhang Jiajun nodded slightly, thinking that it made sense. Guan Yujin's eyes widened as she looked at Wang Han in astonishment. Brother Guan, there's no need to be like this. It's just a small matter, not worth mentioning. Looking at Guan Yujin's expression, Wang Han smiled and waved his hand. No, it's not. Brother Ziyu, Luoyang Palace's winter is not that cold. On the north bank of the Yellow River, which also belonged to Hunan Prefecture, 100 households dug their own vegetable cellar. The top of the cellar was covered with wooden shelves and straw mats, and the top was covered with soil. If you dig a large vegetable cellar, how would the top be covered? Would you use the wood from the roof beams? What would happen if the commoners went in and out and took other people's vegetables? You have to coordinate with the commoners to take them out on the same day. Otherwise, if you open the cellar a few times a day, the vegetables inside would be gone. Guan Yujin was helpless. My family's Dongzhu never thought of this. They didn't dare to think of it. It would cause the commoners to die. Ah, is that so? Wang Han looked at Zhang Jiajun and Zhang Jiyun. The two nodded again. Yes, there was nothing wrong with it. Did you think it was an ice cellar? It was used to take out ice in summer. How would the 100 households store their vegetables? Would there be a path? People would go in and out, and you wouldn't know who stole it. Ice cellars were different. They would take out the ice from the outside. How would the Li family Zhuangzi's vegetables be stored in winter? Don't tell me it's a greenhouse for cabbages? Wang Han thought of another situation. The Li family Zhuangzi was big. Zhuangzi has a large vegetable cellar. It's a fixed cellar. It doesn't use wood, and it's dug deeper. It's used every year. Under normal circumstances, the vegetables stored in a fixed cellar are enough for Zhuangzi to eat for 10 days. The next 10 days, they will change to another cellar. Some cellars store one thing and take it out gradually from the outside. Guan Yujin introduced the Li family Zhuangzi's vegetable cellar. It was big and not dug out. It could be used for a long time. Oh, so that's how it is. I have another plan. It's also for the benefit of the commoners. It's warm in Luoyang during winter. We can dig a pond and catch fish in the river. It's convenient to catch them during winter. Brother Guan, can you send a telegram for me? Even if it's not appropriate, I will know the reason. Wang Han thought of another plan. He wanted to take this opportunity to tell Li Yi. He couldn't go empty-handed. Writing essays was not a problem, but he had to come up with a plan. Guan Yujin hesitated for a moment and nodded. Okay, after eating, Brother Ziyu can organize the message. I will send it. He agreed to give the other party face. The other party had power in the area. When the commoners came to sell the pine nuts home to make money, it was Wang Han who pulled the strings. Whether the plan was good or not, it had nothing to do with him. It was just sending a telegram. There's no hurry. I will perfect it in the afternoon. Wang Han was overjoyed. He ate the egg and planned to come up with a flawless plan. At noon, there was a light drizzle in Henan Prefecture. The rain at this time was unbearable. The weather was already more than 10 degrees Celsius. When it rained, it became wet and cold. Fortunately, the pots used to make free soup were prepared. They added ginger to the soup to dispel the cold. There was a lot of ginger this year. The province next to the capital government planted a lot of ginger. They added extra fertilizer and kept all the mother ginger. They raised it well and planted it again next year. 3 years of mother ginger. A small portion was sent to the Li family Zhuangzi as medicine. The Li family Zhuangzi had 5 years of mother ginger. They couldn't bear to eat it and kept more each year. It wasn't only the crops. Zhuangzi kept all the steel ingots and thick steel plates. They were placed there and not used. The steel ingots would slowly release stress and be used in key parts in the future. They were usually used to make lathes. The Russians used to have a lot of them. After a few years, Li Yi's country took away a lot of them. Things that were accumulated over time were sometimes more precious than old wine. It will be colder after the rain, right? Princess Yongmu sat by the window of the cafeteria and looked at the drizzle outside. I guarantee it will snow. Then we will sell roasted sweet potatoes. Li Yi understood. Princess Yongmu had always wanted to sell roasted sweet potatoes. She heard that the things sold at Tranquil Orchid Pavilion were not down to earth. Roasted sweet potatoes didn't seem to be popular either. Could ordinary people afford to buy roasted sweet potatoes? Did the sweet potatoes want to lose face? Xiao Yi, why don't you seal the pond in Zhuangzi at the foot of the mountain? It will be easier to catch fish in winter. Bai Gu said the same thing as Wang Han. He just thought of it casually. The pond is too small. It has to be a lake. Otherwise, you will have to feed the fish. It will cost more. Li Yi waved his hand and refused. Are you stupid? Catch fish from the river and raise them in a small pond in winter. Chapter 2071. The winter solstice is not welcomed. The night grows longer. The southern geese fly late, and the sun sets late. Mount Song is steep. The pine trees are green. The Luo River is soft. The leaves are yellow. The moon shines on the dark stars. The people are accompanied by fireworks. The sound of Zen music lingers. The dew is heavy and the frost is thick. Yi Fashion smiled as he listened to Li Yi's lecture on the people's livelihood. He could see the depressed expressions of the chancellors. Do I need you to tell me that the officials are forcing the people to rebel? Who are you telling that to? The monks and Taoists don't care about the people. Little friend, don't worry. My name is Wu Wei, but my surname is Shan, following the customs of the Tang dynasty. My name is good and fearless, not good at teaching people to be fearless. Shan Wu Wei smiled and said, My sect didn't offend you. According to the request, you give Princess Jinxian things, and ask her to help us print books. And we help you spread how good the imperial court is. We are working together. Unfortunately, I always want to talk to you, but you say you don't know how to. If you don't know, how can you translate the scriptures? Oh, it's just that you think too much. What do you lack recently? Li Yi's goal was achieved, but he was afraid that your sect would be troublesome. I lack money, Shan Wuwei answered. Money is a worldly possession. Tantra cultivates the body and the mind. Worldly possessions are harmful to the body and mind. But in the mortal world, you have to follow the rules. Do you know anyone who rents out land? For example, some temples are too big and can't be used up, so it's quite deserted. I'm willing to pay rent, really. Li Yi couldn't directly ask the Tokyo governor's temple. They were honest and obedient. Otherwise, why would they deal with the provocation of Hunan? I'll ask later. Shan Wuwei nodded. If you rent it, I'll give you gold powder to print the scriptures. My workmanship is better. The words printed are very beautiful. Li Yi put in the capital. Chang'an Temple was too big. It had a square, and the temple took up a quarter of the space. I'll do my best to find a good place for you. Shan Wuwei was serious. Gold powder was precious. What about old Yi? Li Yi turned to look at Yi Fashion. Wuwei, Yi Fashion didn't say whether it was okay or not. He wanted to let nature take its course. If it wasn't okay, anyway, he did not lack books. His disciple was the golden immortal princess. Princess Jingxian used the bronze type to exchange with Li Yi for the type, and received a lot of extra things. Princess Jingxian's printing workshop was moving. She moved a portion of it, and opened a branch in Luoyang. When the time came, she would continue to print large amounts of books. Princess Jingxian's elder sister, Princess True Jade, was also considered a Taoist. She also made a set of movable type. Xiao Yi, this child, only knows how to give away the good things to others. He puts in a lot of effort, but doesn't ask for anything in return. As the people say, Xiao Yi is a magnanimous prime minister who wins people over with virtue. He only knows how to silently endure losses. Everyone. Li Longji was surprised. He was puzzled. Oh my God, are you sure you don't know my brother Yi? Empress Wang nudged Li Longji and winked at him. Li Longji instantly understood. Yes, to express the imperial family's attitude, and to let the monks and Taoists hear. When it's time to talk about Tao, these people must know how to help. Li Yi was also stunned. Are you trying to praise me to death? That shouldn't be the case. Then he had an epiphany. He quickly picked up 2 cooked prawns, and put them on a small plate. He came to the table next to noble consort Lu. He put them down, held a pair of chopsticks in each hand, and used both hands to peel the prawns. The prawns were peeled, and the shell was placed there. It looked like a complete prawn. To him, this was a routine operation. If he didn't have the ability, he wouldn't dare to perform surgery on others. The monks and Taoists nearby had already stood up. It was the first time they had seen 2 pairs of chopsticks peel prawns like this. Xiao Yi is such a good child. I look at him, as if he's my grandson-in-law. Go back and eat. Don't tire yourself out. Noble consort Lu was happy. She could watch a performance while eating prawns. Li Yi went back. Princess Yongmu and Xiao Lan were working hard to peel prawns. The 2 of them peeled a prawn with chopsticks. It was almost like inviting the pen spirit. Li Yi waited for the 2 of them to finish. The efficiency was countless times lower than when he peeled alone. Li Lang, you eat. Princess Yongmu and Xiao Lan finally finished peeling a prawn. Li Yi kissed Princess Yongmu as quickly as possible. In the next moment, he had already lowered his head to eat the prawn. Dongzhu, I just received news that many of the monks and Taoists in the open space next to the pear garden are taking over after eating. Some of them are even feverish. Songde reported the situation to Li Yi through the small robot. Huh. Li Yi was stunned. He quickly swallowed the food in his mouth. I didn't do anything. Food poisoning? No, many people are waiting to watch the show. I'm going to sell tickets to the important viewing platform. What's going on? Ask them quickly. I'll send someone to take a look. Could it be that their tofu has been left out for too long? Eating food with spoiled protein can kill people. Other than moldy tofu and moldy qianzhang, there's also fermented tofu and stinky tofu. The situation is different. The voice belonged to a female nurse in Zhuangzi. There was a small robot in the ambulance that was used as a wireless phone. Upper Croton, pay attention to the monarch, minister, assistant and envoy. It can also induce vomiting and follow the perfusion and cleaning of the intestines. After a few hours of fasting, remember to replenish normal saline and drink more water. After that, it will be tomorrow morning, right? Feed them millet porridge and pickled vegetables. Pay attention to whether there is a fever. If there is, give them antibiotics. No, increase the amount of water they drink. Tomorrow afternoon, they will eat sorghum rice, perilla leaves, pickled vegetables, and celery leaves. I just remembered that I have opium poppy cream in the car. Feed them. There's so much of it. Feed them when they are emptied. Li Yi wanted the nurse to use antibiotics. But suddenly he couldn't bear to do so. Antibiotics were exchanged with lifespan. He would rather use it on ordinary people. When others had diarrhea, he wanted to use croton to fight poison with poison. There was nothing wrong with it. When they had diarrhea, Chinese medicine would prescribe laxatives. Don't be surprised. It's a routine procedure. There were even some Chinese medicine doctors who had a good relationship with them. When their children had diarrhea and fever, they would go and look for them. They didn't ask for money. They would take the pulse and look at the situation. Then they would tell you to buy ice cream and popsicles for your children. If they eat 20 popsicles a day without eating rice, they would be fine the next day. One was low-temperature sterilization. The other was sugar and salt supplement. The other was water intake. The other was digestion. Eating popsicles was also a physical cooling. It was internal cooling. Li wanted to do this. Empty the intestines first, and then deal with it. The opium poppy cream was effective. Don't eat too much protein tomorrow. Eat millet porridge. Salt couldn't be lacking. Without electrolytes, dehydration would be more serious. Salt had a balancing effect. If there was more salt, stomach acid would be reduced. Li Lang, the method of making stinky tofu and fermented bean curd is stated in the newspaper. Why are they still having problems? Princess Yongmu waited for Li Yi to end the call. She was puzzled. The newspaper told the people not to do it themselves, because the cost was too high. If businessmen did it according to the formula and precautions, there would be no problems. Li Yi scratched his head. I think both Buddhism and Taoism are involved. Some Buddhists don't eat meat. They eat tofu, and then want to make fermented bean curd and stinky tofu. Taoists like to study and mix all kinds of things. They also do it. When both sides cooperate, the products might be different from the formula and steps written in the newspaper. Then can they still compete? Princess Yongmu was not very happy. No problem. Chapter 2076. When the sun rose, thick eel porridge was placed on the table. Everyone in Zhuangzi ate it. The Yellow River was being cleaned up, and the eels were dug out in piles. Most of the eels were raised by the Li family Zhuangzi, while a small portion was sent to the medical centers and pharmacies in Henan Prefecture. Zhuangzi made eel porridge, and the blood was taken out to dry. The blood itself was poisonous, and could be used to treat illnesses. Fresh eels were often used to extract the blood. Xiao Yi's culinary skills are indeed not bad. Bai Gu sat at the table in front of Li Yi again. I didn't make it. Li Yi did not give him face. Xiao Yi's culinary skills are indeed not bad. I can only eat good food if I teach others. Bai Gu followed up with another sentence to round things up. Eels are also delicious. After Zhuangzi purchases them, they spit out the sand, kill them, and sell them to the people. Princess Yongmu was afraid that Bai Gu would be embarrassed, so she spoke from the side. Yes, yes. Xiaolan agreed, and continued to eat the porridge. The porridge was too thick, so she could stand with her chopsticks. Stewed with tofu? Bai Gu liked eels stewed with tofu. The Li family Zhuangzi made it. Li picked up a fried salted ribbon fish. Zhuangzi eats eel porridge. I made a large amount of eel porridge in the morning, and sent it to Luoyang Palace to sell. You can't afford it outside Luoyang Palace? Bai Gu found the meaning in Li Yi's words. I can't bear to eat it. I want to save money and settle down. Fortunately, the imperial court provides subsidies. Children who are not old enough to go to school can provide extra meat for their mothers and children. Li Yi did not refute Bai Gu. He was serious and could not always joke around. Li Longji's arrival allowed others to settle down in Henan Prefecture, like the capital governor. A large number of runaways ran over, and did not pursue past matters. Unless they had hurt or killed people in the past, they would not come. The people trusted him, so he had to make proper arrangements when he arrived. Li Longji, the imperial court, the Li family Zhuangzi, and the Chaotian Foundation of the Tang dynasty provided the money. When the money was put together, the four sides would send people to participate in the management and supervise each other. The person who handled the money couldn't be greedy even if he wanted to. It was impossible for him to get his brother-in-law to buy something and sell it to the imperial court at a high price. Have some porridge. It doesn't taste good when it's cold. Bai Gu thought for a while and realized that he had nothing to say. He picked up the spoon and ate the porridge. At the place where the large-scale illusion stage was set up, a group of people were also eating porridge. None of them seemed to be in good condition, and their expressions were dispirited. What's the difference? Chapter 2077. Erica was grown in the Tang dynasty for many years. It was a good thing that ordinary people could not eat. Erica must be grown in large quantities, but it can't be eaten by the people all the time. It's harmful to the oral cavity. Also, the pumpkin seeds we brought back can be used to kill insects with Erica. Li said as he thought. He had tasted Erica before, so he knew what it tasted like. He would not eat it in the future. It did not mean that eating Erica would lead to oral cavity cancer, and ulcers would also be uncomfortable. The point was that it was similar to smoking. It was addictive and could be quit. It was not difficult to quit. It depended on whether one wanted to quit. In his time, Erica was sold everywhere, and Hainan had the most. There were many people who rode electric motorcycles and diesel motorcycles in Hainan, and they were all very skilled. The bottom half of the trees by the roadside and around the roots were usually reddish-brown. First-time visitors would wonder if it was blood. Later, they saw people spitting mouthful after mouthful of Erica juice that looked like blood. Only then did they understand. Now, just like how he did not want the people of the Tang dynasty to smoke, Erica should not be eaten unless it was used for treatment. The Tang dynasty could control it with the law. It was not like Yemen, where the leaves of the khat tree were addictive. It was similar to opium poppy and coca. Opium poppy was refined into heroin, while coca was refined into cocaine, a special type of marijuana, and khat tree leaves were drugs. Tobacco was also considered as an irritant. Send it to them? Princess Yongmu knew that there was medicine for killing insects. Nowadays, the pharmacy was still keeping it for people to use. How do they treat the people? Li Yi was recalling that he had never discussed the matter of medical skills and practice with any monk or Taoist priest. Some of them would wrap incense ashes. Some of the pilgrims would pick herbs and brew medicine for them when they fell sick. When the scholars entered the lodging, they would also treat them when they fell sick. Usually, the scholars would leave behind poems. When the scholars become officials or become influential, they would naturally take care of the temple. Princess Yongmu supported her chin with both hands as she spoke. She was not afraid of biting her tongue. Li Yi fed the peeled grapefruit to the two of them. Don't support your chin while eating. I don't have the ability to treat your tongue in a day. Oh, Princess Yongmu put down her hands. She was afraid of pain. Li licked his fingers. Bitter. He furrowed his brows. In the future, Pear Garden will be considered a tourist area. If a tourist falls sick, it will be easier for them to receive treatment in time. Princess Yongmu blinked her big eyes. Does it have anything to do with the monks and Taoists getting sick from eating? Xiaolong quickly swallowed the grapefruit. The Li family Zhuangzi went over to open a medicine shop. Coincidentally, there was an imperial physician there. Asked the imperial physician to sell medicine to others. Xiaolong is so smart. Princess Yongmu understood. I only dare to say it when I'm with Lil Miss. Xiaolong smacked her lips. What does it have to do with me? It's in the hands of others. Oh, Princess Yongmu comprehended on her own this time. He was too smart. If he overshadowed his master, he would be dealt with. Li fed the two of them another mouthful of grapefruit. Now arrange for someone to bring the herbs over. He looked for Songda, and Songda made arrangements for the stewards. The Li family Zhuangzi didn't lack herbs. If they built their own herb base, They would need herbs that hadn't grown yet. Those that were only 1 or 2 years old could be harvested. There were also ginkgo leaves, loquat leaves, orange peels and other herbs that could be harvested every year. The Zhuangzi had even more, so they couldn't use them all. The medicine shops all over the country would send some of the herbs they had to the Li family Zhuangzi for tuition fees. The books were printed and sent to the medicine shops. They didn't need to pay for the books. And they didn't even need to pay for the books. The medicine shops had to treat some of the poor for free. Cheap herbs such as hawthorn water, mugwort, cypress branches, and bamboo leaves were given to the poor. The illnesses of the people of the capital government required more expensive medicine. They would go to the medicine shops in the southern part of Chang, and to get their prescriptions from the Li family Zhuangzi's medicine shop to get their medicine. If they didn't have the prescription stamped, they wouldn't be able to get their medicine unless they poured it at the entrance of the Li family Zhuangzi's medicine shop. Li Longji gave half of the herbs that the Tang dynasty offered as tribute to the Li family Zhuangzi. His family lived in Zhuangzi, so half of the herbs were left in the palace to be used by the rest of the people. As for the rest of the people who couldn't come, they were still sent to the Li family Zhuangzi's medicine shop, especially those who needed surgery. At this moment, the herbs were being transported out of the palace by small train. Lu Youqiu walked over with a large enamel jar and brewed tea. Xiao Yi, I have something to say, but I don't know if it's appropriate, he asked Li Yi. Li Yi shook his head slowly. No. Lu Youqiu was speechless. Ha 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 ha, Bai Gu laughed. Xiao Yi, forgive me for being blunt. Lu Youqiu changed his approach. Before Li Yi could say forgive me, he interrupted. That foundation of yours, the Tang dynasty's Qingdai Medical Foundation. Li Yi nodded. Of course. With so many herbs, what will happen to the people who practice medicine in the world? Lu Youqiu asked. Bai Zaifu. Li Yi looked at Bai Gu, who had just finished laughing. Aha, Bai Gu coughed. The price is cheap, and the people's illness can be cured. There must be a lot of people who seek treatment. The people live long, and the doctors are virtuous and rich. He answered that with so many herbs, there were actually more people who fell ill. It was just that many people couldn't afford to see patients now, so there were few doctors. Xiao Yi had mentioned before that it was impossible for the people who practice medicine to not be able to eat when there were so many herbs. It turned out that only 10 out of 1,000 people could be cured. If one person could earn 10 coins, they could earn 100 coins. With so many herbs, medical books, improved medical skills and cheap medicine, 300 out of 1,000 people could be cured. If one person charged 1 coin, they could earn 300 coins. I've learned something. Lu Youqiu understood. There are pros and cons in medicine, and there are pros and cons in medicine. The rich choose the best and abandon the worst. He was talking about himself. He had to spend more money to find better doctors, to prescribe more expensive medicine, although he didn't need to spend money to see patients now. Before noon, the medicine shop was open for business, and the imperial physician was in charge. The sick monks and Taoist priests were told that there might be worms in their stomachs, so they had to pay for medicine. They knew what medicine to use, including how to suppress diarrhea. The people working here saw the new medicine shop, and curiously came over to ask about it. My back hurts. How much does it cost to see it? The person who wanted his son to take his daughter to the martyrs' cemetery bent over and asked. There was a bruise on the left side of his forehead, as if he had been flicked on the head. The imperial physician looked at him. 200 coins. I'm the imperial physician of the Imperial Medical Department. Got it. Thank you. The person turned around and bowed even more. Are you working for the Li family Zhuangzi? The imperial physician asked again, while observing the person's walking posture. Yes. The person turned around and nodded. The money is from the Li family Zhuangzi. Come give me your wrist. The imperial physician squinted his eyes and placed the pulse pillow properly. The Li Dongzhu paid? I don't want to see it. The person hesitated and wanted to leave again. He already did. We'll use the medical book he gave us to treat our illness. The imperial physician continued to stare at the person's body, including the rise and fall of his chest when he spoke. Ah, the medical book Li Dongzhu gave you? Where did he get it? The person moved forward and prepared to sit down. He didn't spend his own money, nor did he spend Li Dongzhu's money. Fine, I'll let you take a look. You idiot. Li Dongzhu is a genius doctor. My daughter can't be with your son.